I don't really think you understand what you're facing right now. And I've been hitting you every single day, trying to convince you guys to think differently about money, to think differently about wealth. This is called the Millionaire Morning Show. And we like to span a bevy of different topics. But more importantly, I want to figure out how it is that I can add value into you in addition to being entertaining, right? It's not just about the thing that's entertaining. It's the thing that adds the most value to our life. That's why we call ourselves bag chasers. Bag chasers are people that look to be the best versions of themselves, understanding that the money, the relationships, and everything great comes along with it. Character, growth, success, networking, all of those things matter. But more than anything, even the word of God said, in everything you do, you need to get understanding. And so I want to help you to understand why it's important, not only that you make a lot of money, but to be able to compartmentalize exactly what money means. Because there's a lot of people that make a lot of money, but it doesn't make them a better person. It's a lot of people that make a lot of money, but it doesn't fix their problems. Your problems become exponentially larger as a result of not really understanding how money works, right? When you owe the IRS, when you're making a whole lot of money, they coming for their money. You can't discharge that, right? When you owe a lot of money when it comes to student loans, you can't get rid of that. And it's a lot of people that's frustrated. And for the people that's looking from the outside in and they say, well, you make over $100,000 a year. How are you frustrated? I could fix all of my problems with that. If I hit the lottery, I could fix all of my problems with that. Well, it's because you don't truly understand how money works. So I want to share a video with you guys before we really, really deep dive into the show to make sure that I'm adding as much value as possible and that you can really leverage the information that I'm giving you in order to be successful. Let's get into it, ladies and gentlemen.
For an influx of defaulting payments as higher prices across the board force Americans to use credit cards. It comes as over half of Americans earning a six-figure salary report that they're actually living paycheck to paycheck. So to help us,
half of Americans, let's stop right there and let's take that in before we get into the video. More than half of Americans making over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I know that there's going to be a little bit of a debate here and there because I've heard it 1,000 times. Well, it's because they don't manage their money right. Well, it's because they truly are living above their lifestyle. You need to move into a smaller city or go into the suburbs instead of being in the city. Manhattan is crazy. Why would anybody live in New York? Chicago, Detroit, Atlanta, Milwaukee, Philly, North Carolina, Charlotte, Miami, Houston, Dallas, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Raleigh, Los Angeles, Seattle. Get out of those cities. I don't know. That's because they living above their means. That's because they trying to get all of the big cars, and they think that as soon as they get above six figures, they can go and get a BMW, so on and so forth. Let's take this in. January 30th, 2023, according to a study performed by Fortune magazine, more than half of Americans raking in $100,000 or more are living paycheck to paycheck. You know what I've noticed? Because I do a lot of coaching sessions. I do a lot of studying. I look at the numbers. It helps inform me to how it is that I'm going to invest. If you have not watched that video inside of the Patreon, go and watch it again. The 8 things that I look for when I'm looking to invest in a company. You know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at a society that has been conditioned to believe that debt is good. You say it all the time to me. Hey, use other people's money to make money. You don't even know what that means. Let's continue into the article and then we're going to get into it.
Break down all of this is Megan Lenhart. She's a senior reporter for Fortune magazine. Thanks for joining us. You know, a lot of people are going to hear you make $100,000 a year and you're living paycheck to paycheck. That seems it seems like crazy talk, but it's actually happening. But we're going to get to that in a minute. First, I want to talk about what we're seeing the banks doing. The banks are bracing for putting money aside for people essentially defaulting on loans. What happens if a large number of people start to default on their payments, whether it's credit cards or their car payments or whatever it is?
Well, hey, I appreciate you having me this morning. I think that this is an important topic that we need to talk about over and over again in the coming year. Certainly last year and throughout the early days of the pandemic, since, the onset of the lockdowns.
Let's back up a little bit. Let's back up slightly because I actually want y'all to see that, all right? I want you to see what that looks like, okay? This is delinquent credit card loans. Americans are making more than they ever have in their entire lives. This is delinquent credit card loans. If you look over here to the right, It's actually on the upswing. If you look over to the right, it's starting to be on the upswing. This is based off of data that's provided from American Express, Discover, and Capital One. I recently did a video where I also released a clip where I showed y'all, and I actually showed y'all me on the application, how I canceled my American Express Platinum. What I seen in the comments is as a reflection of what it is that I see happening in society. Almost every single person, and I actually am a person that is rich out of my mind. I will never be able to spend the amount of money that I make in my lifetime. My daughter is well taken care of. I literally just paid $163,000 in order to pay off the final mortgage of one of my investment properties. I have zero debt, zero credit card debt, zero student loan debt. I have zero mortgage debt. I have no debt. I just have assets. I have things that are continuously making me money on top of money, on top of money, on top of money, on top of money. And when I said, yo, I don't need this. The only thing I need is one credit card. I got one credit card. The one credit card that I have is a Marriott card. It's a Chase Marriott card because it allows for me to be able to make sure that I'm reserving my rental cars when I'm traveling. I can get my hotel when I'm traveling, so on and so forth. And since I have to have one in order to be able to fit what it is that I do from a travel perspective, because you can't rent a car without a credit card, I have to have it. But I literally have zero debt, and I showed y'all that too. I'm always showing the receipts. I see people in the comments sitting here, well, this is important for the points, and you got to get into the lounges and all of this other type of stuff. When are we going to reset? The data says that you wrong. The data says that everybody in the comments debating me about how it is that you need to be moving from a financial perspective is wrong. The data say you wrong. I put away all of the Rolexes. I drive my Hyundai every day just to show you that it's not as important as people think it is. Guess what happened when I started driving my Hyundai? Guess what happened when I put away all of the Rolexes? Absolutely nothing. Nobody not fucked with me. Nobody looked at me differently. My DMs is not popping as a result of the different chicks that's sending a shot trying to understand whether or not they can become a side chick. There is no shortage of anything that stopped happening as a result of me parking my car, walking into the office. People see me walking into the office and they have no different perspective about me whatsoever. Nothing happened. What are you afraid of? Why are you so afraid of making an adjustment and resetting and going back to the core thing that got you to the point that you are now as far as the success aspect of it, not the lifestyle aspect of it, not the lifestyle creep that allows for you to continue to overpay for things to impress people that don't care nothing about you? What is the problem with people coming back to the front of the congregation and saying, you know what, maybe we need to hit the reset button and then get back to the basics? Nothing happened differently. I don't have to drive the S-Class in order to be able to do anything. I have it because it's a convenience and because I can afford it. And I've actually put myself in a position to where I actually have no debt whatsoever. To be honest with you, it's really a business car. And we use it as a driver. I got a specific designated driver that take my guests around when they come into town and they coming into the studio to film. The entire car is a tax write-off. I can still tell time. Is the Rolex an awesome timepiece that appreciates over time with value? Absolutely. But you don't need that in order to really be able to thrive. At some point, we have to pull back, start doing the thing that's in our own best interest, and stop focusing on the noise. The problem with people is not that the stuff is bad. It's that you can't focus when you get too many things because then you become obsessed with the noise. The noise is the stuff that's distracting you from your purpose. And that's why it's important to reset every year, because then you can start to refocus on the things that actually matter. Networking, growth, spirituality, becoming a better person, character, relationships. The money is going to come anyway. The money comes with it. I didn't stop making money because I put the Rolex up. I didn't stop making money because I decided to not drive that car. You know how much I pay in insurance for those cars? I'm not even going to tell you how many cars I got at this point because I don't want you feeling a certain type of way because you're like, oh, Anton is bragging. I don't even want to embarrass you like that. My insurance for the year is the equivalent of about $18,000 to $19,000 a year. Now I live in a phenomenal county, right? Not in the within city limits. The address that I have is not within city limits, so I'm not being taxed on that. I have no accidents, no tickets, no nothing. Rita has no accidents, no tickets, no nothing. I'm 40, which means I'm way above the threshold in what it takes from an insurance perspective. So everything that I'm being charged is based off of the values of the cars. I pay the equivalent of about $19,000 a year in insurance just for my cars. My tax to renew those cars is about between $1,600 and $1,700 a year. Now that ain't got nothing to do with maintenance. That don't have nothing to do with gas. If I decided to put gas in an S-Class, that don't have nothing to do with anything else outside of just owning the cars. And I don't have no car payments. So when you start to compartmentalize how fast $67,000 goes, and I'm not even talking about $100,000 because $100,000 is really $67,000, between $67,000 and $70,000 a year after taxes. If you are a single person living in any major city or outside of a major city, it'll vary between $67,000 and $70,000 a year. When you start to break that down from a mathematical perspective, as far as what it is that you're doing in order to impress people that don't care nothing about you, you still sitting on student loans, you still sitting on money you ain't paid your homeboy back. You still got credit card debt, and you sitting here talking to me about how it's important in order for you to leverage other people's money. No, you need to get back to basics because you're not supposed to be in debt. And I'm trying to teach our culture and our people that, listen, we're not supposed to be indebted. We're not supposed to be owing people. We're not supposed to be in a space where we're paying people interest on the money just to be able to service the loan. We're supposed to be kings. We're supposed to be queens. Kings and queens don't move like that. We in a position of power. We become the lender, not the borrower. Let me say that again. You become the lender, not the borrower. People are supposed to come for you for assistance. It's not supposed to be the other way around. Let me play this a little bit longer and then we're going to move over to the next story.
Last year and throughout the early days of the pandemic, since the onset of the lockdowns, we've seen that credit card delinquencies have been historically low. So now we're starting to see a ramp up period, given the inflation, given the economic environment that we've been in. We're going to start seeing, more people sitting there and saying, I can't pay my credit card at the end of the month. And of course, now I want to stress that, again, we've been in a historically low environment. I know TransUnion and other experts are predicting somewhere where we're going to go from about 2% to maybe about 2.6% this year. Now, granted, it's still much lower than some of those crazy high rates we saw during the financial crisis. Credit card delinquencies at that point were somewhere in the 3.2 range. So again, nothing too crazy, but that does obviously have ripple effects. We're already starting to see credit card companies, banks saying, you know what, we're going to tighten our lending standards. We're going to sit there and put a little bit more money on the books to make sure that we have enough to cover this if it becomes a problem.
Do you know why the banks always put money aside when they start to tighten up? Because I did a video that I dropped on a Millionaire Morning Show channel this morning. Last night I recorded it. I dropped this morning. And I told y'all that y'all need to start mimicking what is happening. Let me go ahead and move off of this particular article. I told y'all that y'all need to start mimicking what is happening in corporate America in order to really, really be able to leverage how it is that you got your resources and to make the most of your money, right? I told y'all this. I broke this down for y'all. And the reason why they start to make these adjustments is because they're able to look at key factors, indicators, and data. They don't just go based off of how they feel like most of us. They look at key factors, data, and indicators in order to determine what's going to happen. They know that the Fed is continuing to raise rates in order to fight inflation. They know that you are starting to fall into delinquency. They know that it's a possibility that student loans eventually, once it goes through the Supreme Court and Biden get his butt handed to him, I'm not going to curse. I was playing gospel music this morning. They know that eventually they're going to have to turn the student loan payments back on, and you've already adjusted your lifestyle in order to fit not having to pay your student loans because you hoping to be forgiven. And then some of y'all just don't care, right? They know that traveling is up despite the fact that it's a recession and there's a lot of layoffs coming because you've already booked that trip because you promised that girl that don't even like you and she got you listed as Trip in her phone, that you was going to take her out just to possibly get some Gawk 3000. Huh? Banks know that defaults will be on the rise. They see the standards. They look at more than just your credit score in order to determine whether or not you're capable of paying back a specific loan that they can give you, right? It's not your credit score. And I'm going to break this down in the Patreon. Shout out to the Patreon members. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. It's not your credit score that's going to determine whether or not you can get approved for that loan. You know what it is? It's your debt to income ratio. It's your credit utilization rate. There's other factors such as, what is your house payment? How much longer do you have to pay on it? How much is your car payment? How many people are in your household? Do you own your home or do you rent? They ask you these questions and then they put it inside of a database that spits out basically insight and information to help them to understand of whether or not they need to start tightening up. Contrary to popular belief, they like people that have middling to bad credit. They just don't want to take the risk of giving it to you. And the reason why they like you is because they make more money from you, because they can give you a higher requirement or charge you more interest for giving you money. That's why some of y'all is paying 25 and 26% on your credit cards, because you really aren't supposed to have the credit card, but they wanted to take the risk because they know they're going to make a lot of money from you, with the possibility of you defaulting. But by the time you default, they probably already made enough money to cover what it is that they gave you. So it's worth the risk. Everything is calculated. Everything is specifically tailored to making sure that they can extract every single dollar from you. Every single dollar. Don't do it. Let's make some adjustments. Let's do things differently. And let's get to this money.